What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the MovieDash podcast brought to you by Lawyat.net, a podcast where we review movies, TV series, and round up the week with discussions on iron hot topics in the world of cinema. I'm Dashran and joining me today to discuss the Star Wars prequels is... You've seen him review movies and talk about movies on Lawyat.net. He is the one and only Samuel Lim.
Hey, great to be here.
Yep. I've been looking forward to having you on the show for quite some time already, so excited to have you, man.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, Star Wars prequels, man. I think today we're going to talk about more of our relationship with the Star Wars prequels. Okay, because I think the Star Wars prequels is really interesting, right? Because when I was a kid, I loved the prequels because the prequels was my entry point into the Star Wars universe. So yes, my dad did show me, like the original trilogy on dusty old VHS tapes and all that, as I'm sure your dad too, maybe.
Sure.
Okay, maybe not. But it was the prequels, man, like watching it on the big screen.
Yeah.
I watched Phantom Menace when I was 6 years old and it just blew my mind. At the time I didn't care. I didn't care about whatever political stuff they were talking about or anything. I just saw Qui-Gon Jinn had a green lightsaber. He looked badass. And the final battle with Darth Maul was awesome. And I was just hooked as a fan. What about you, man? What was your first experience like with the prequels?
Okay, so full disclosure, I watched it in the wrong order.
Okay.
Like I watched Attack of the Clones, and then Phantom Menace, and then Revenge of the Sith.
How did that happen?
Okay, so when I was young, right, my brother told me, hey, you want to watch a movie about robots, and then there's laser swords, and there's really just this guy who talks like a robot. Is he a robot? No, he's not a robot, but he talks like it.
Okay.
All right, I am in. And the first time I saw Attack of the Clones, I was like, wow, this is certainly something. And when you're a kid, like really flashy, high concept sci-fi really got to me. So I thought, okay, this is interesting. And, before I even heard of the original trilogies, I thought the idea of a clone army and the idea of like these like spiritual warriors that took after like Japanese culture.
And monks. Samurais and monks basically.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was like, damn, this is pretty badass. Yeah. Then like I watched The Phantom Menace. I was like, wow. What happened here? This is pod racing.
Yeah. So, but I think, okay, so for you, it was Attack of the Clones that brought you into the universe and you became a fan from there. For me, it was Phantom Menace when I was 6. But did your relationship with Star Wars sort of change over the years? Because for me, as I entered my teenage years, I started to view the prequels very differently. Because at that point, I watched all 6 movies that had come out at the time, like multiple times. And I think I was at an age where I started to care more about like plot and character depth and all these kind of things. So a lot of things that didn't bother me about the prequels at the start started to bother me.
I was creeping.
When I was a kid, I didn't care about Jar Jar Binks. In fact, I thought it was kind of funny. You're 6 years old, it's a cute character sticking his tongue out. Awesome. But as I grew up, I was like, this character is so bloody annoying and insufferable. I just didn't get it. So my whole view of the prequels started to change. Even when I started to look at the politics of the Phantom Menace, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. They are saying a bunch of words and a lot of those words are complex, but they don't exactly carry any weight. They don't seem to be structured properly and all that. Did your relationship with the Star Wars prequels like sort of change over the years?
Oh yeah. It took I like to liken my relationship to the Star Wars prequels as somebody who got gaslit for a while.
Okay.
I had a very abusive relationship with the prequels because I thought he was a great guy. I loved hanging out with him.
Yeah.
And then I started to see flaws, and people were pointing out my flaws and saying like it's wrong. But I was like, you don't know him like I do.
Yeah.
But then you started watching the old trilogy, and you go, okay, this makes thematic sense. I can follow Luke Skywalker's journey. And the whole father-son tension is beautiful. It's romantic. It's dynamic. It's got so much depth and there's just so much complexity to it. But then when I came back to the prequels, I thought, oh wow, this is not so much complex.
Anakin and Padme rolling in the sand.
Oh yeah, I don't like sand.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yep.
This.
That's the thing, right, about the prequels. I think a lot of us who of this generation, that was our entry point. We loved it. But as we grew older, we sort of saw a lot of the flaws. But do you think a lot of these flaws that we saw, do you think external forces played a part in sort of changing our relationship with the prequels? Because was it just us who noticed these flaws, or were you in a way influenced by people around you, or like older fans around you who said that you shouldn't like it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had cinephile friends who would like take a giant shit down my throat for saying, "You like this garbage. You only like it because of the aesthetics. You're not paying attention to the story." Yeah, but Darth Maul has a double-sided lightsaber. I'm like, no, there's more to it. I'm like, is there? But okay, admittedly, Revenge of the Sith took a very like interesting turn there.
Yeah, I think that's the consensus right now. I would say that although Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace had the whole pod racing, like you said, just did not work. And also Attack of the Clones you see, the thing is, the romance idea in Attack of the Clones was good. Is this whole idea of how Anakin, you know, he was drawn to the dark side, or he became evil essentially because of love.
Yeah.
You know, and things that went wrong because of his love for Padme. But at the end of the day, I think Revenge of the Sith, I think is a really good movie, and I think it's whether you're a fan of the original trilogy or the new trilogy, whatever age group, I think Revenge of the Sith is a pretty solid movie, wouldn't you say?
It is. I mean, are there flaws in it? Yes.
Yep.
Multiple. But the whole, like, one thing that I noticed that George Lucas that was going for throughout the prequels was he was trying to make it more grandiose, a lot more quote unquote mature. And we can see in Attack of the Clones, there was a bit of a Romeo and Juliet theme going on. Then we saw in like Revenge of the Sith, there was this sort of like Macbethian sort of down spiral with him, like just giving into his hatred, his anger, his paranoia. So I think Revenge of the Sith does have a lot of merit. I mean, Anakin could have been a little bit less whiny.
Yep.
But seeing his downfall, I can somewhat buy it.
Yeah.
And there were quite a lot of like heartbreaking scenes in there.
Yep.
Like the duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin just
I think it's still one of the best lightsaber battles. It's so emotionally fueled. And that's the thing, right? Because I think if we talk about the prequels, now that we brought up the whole lightsaber aspect, I think we need to talk about the lightsaber battles a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I have a love-hate relationship between the duel of fate. Right? Between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon and Darth Maul. I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with that battle because on the one end, it looks cool. Right? You have three of them and they are going and like going at each other at superbly choreographed a battle, and one of them has a dual lightsaber and all these kind of thing, you know, double-edged lightsaber. But the thing is, to me, it feels so choreographed to the point where it sort of removes a lot of the emotional drama and realism out of it. What do you think? Like do you think that lightsaber battle works, especially when you compare to, let's say, something in the original trilogy, let's say The Empire Strikes Back, where, you know, when Luke goes up against Darth Vader, or even in Return of the Jedi, he's so emotionally charged that he's just hacking away his lightsaber. There's so much drama there. Whereas the Duel of Fates sort of feels like as if
clean.
It's a bit too clean, and it's as if Obi-Wan, Darth Maul, and Qui-Gon, the characters, not the actors, came together and choreographed that fight and then said, "Let's go." You know, it kind of feels like that a little bit. Does it affect you that way?
Now that you mentioned it, it seems so strange because he's going kick, pivot, kick, jump, oh, it's your turn. And now that you mention it, it is a very clean, very ballet-esque fight. And I do take a bit of issue with that because Star Wars, based on the originals, the lightsaber was never meant to be seen almost like a katana. It was almost seen like baseball bat. It was almost seen as a commander's saber.
Yeah.
But here we got to see different styles and like how it fits. But a lot of the times, it kind of broke my immersion because I thought, what if we stopped dancing and one of you just started going at the limbs?
Yep.
Wouldn't that just end the fight?
Exactly. And I think the counter, some people have brought it up to me, which I can see that this viewpoint, but this perspective, but I don't necessarily agree with it because I still think it could have been done better, is the idea that because at that point, compared to the original trilogy, like in the original trilogy, it happened like years after, Order 66 and like, the whole idea of Jedi it became sort of like this mythical thing, right?
Yeah.
And like Luke isn't this experienced master, whereas Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan and Darth Maul are both so experienced when it comes to lightsaber that it sort of becomes like this dance.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we've got that out of the way, right? So lightsabers, we love the lightsaber battle in Revenge of the Sith, especially. We've all talked about that. So now that the new sequel movies have come out, and like we've gotten like new canon material, we've gotten Star Wars Rebels, and we are going to continue getting new Star Wars movies. Did you go back to the prequels over the past couple of years, and has your like relationship with the prequel sort of changed?
Oh yeah, like just to go on a tangent, what like Clone Wars was kind of sucked to me until I saw Genndy Tartakovsky's like the Cartoon Network version of it, and I thought, my God, this is amazing, especially that General Grievous fight scene. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out on YouTube.
Okay,
it's all the clips out there, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting because there's a lot of extended lore stuff. So I followed shows like Star Wars, Clone Wars, not the Tartakovsky one, but the new one by Dave Filoni.
Yep.
And then I followed Star Wars Rebels, and I found a whole new appreciation for the prequels. I mean, some people would say, it's kind of sad that you need to look at cartoons to find value.
I mean, but the thing is, we can't help it, right? Because
we can't.
This is all of this is subjective. Like our feelings to these things are subjective because I feel the same way. I think in my teenage years, I grew to dislike the prequels that for a short period of time, I actually stopped watching it, right? Before I watched The Force Awakens, I went on a Star Wars marathon, but I didn't include the prequels in my marathon. I just watched New Hope, Empire, Return of the Jedi, and then I went and watched Force Awakens. But over the past couple of years, I started rewatching all the prequels, and I've started to like it a lot more because I think one of the reasons why I didn't like the prequels is because that there's this feeling that Star Wars is supposed to be this great, masterful work of pure fantasy. And then when you get the prequels, it's kind of, execution is very wonky and all that. So I was always like, oh my God, this is the end. This is the end of Star Wars and this is what we have. But now that I know we are getting more and more movies, the prequels don't seem like the end game anymore. They're just part of the universe. They are part of it. So I'm looking at the prequels. I still think there are loads of flaws because one thing the prequels has taught me is that George Lucas is a fantastic idea guy.
Yes,
he's great at coming up with ideas. He's a shit director and a shit script writer.
Well, don't put him anywhere near a script. He's gonna write weird things.
Exactly.
Good
but
God.
That's what the thing. Original trilogy, he gave all the ideas, but especially Empire and Return of the Jedi, he didn't write the script. He didn't direct the movies. So he gave the ideas. Script writers came, adapted his ideas into a screenplay, and then he got directors came and breathed life into those screenplays.
Lawrence Kasdan, right?
Lawrence Kasdan was the screenwriter of Empire Strikes Back. But now, because George Lucas is still a great idea guy, so now when I watch the prequels, I'm not watching because they're not flawless films, right? They're not at all. But they have very good story beats. So I'm just watching the prequels for the story more than the storytelling, which I know is technically not what film is supposed to be about. But like I said, because prequels for me is just part of the thing now that I go back to explore story beats. So I love the idea that this small kid, came into the fold and, he had a mom that was treated as a slave and all that. And Qui-Gon brought him into the fold, and people from the Jedi Order, especially Mace Windu and even Yoda, told him, we sense some discrepancy in the Force, we sense some darkness in him. He shouldn't, we shouldn't train him and all. But then, they trained him anyway, and then he grows up to be this guy, and he falls in love with this princess, and it's because of his love, and he was really, really in love. You see, when I tell these beats as a story, which we don't watch the storytelling,
you'd be excited. You
it
would
is
be
good.
excited.
Yes, yeah. So like what about you, man? How has your relationship evolved over the years with the prequels?
Okay, so one thing, like as a media student,
Yeah.
because I was studying about meta narratives and
Yeah.
all sorts of concepts, one thing I've come to realize about George Lucas is, yes, you are absolutely right. Big ideas. In fact, he likes to take bits of myths and religion and weave it in there. I mean, the idea, which is one of the issues I took with the prequel, was because Anakin Skywalker was born out of the Force.
Yep.
And it was supposed to be this virgin birth.
And basically it's the Jesus Christ, and the mom's supposed to be Virgin Mary sort of
Merry
thing.
Christmas, everyone. Yeah. So I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is so confusing.
And then the midi-chlorians and all that. Yeah.
And now you can count the Force.
Yeah,
Like,
it didn't make sense.
yeah. But then, like I said, as you move along and as he decided, I feel like he's telling you it'll get better. I promise it gets better.
Yeah.
It gets better. And then at the end of the Revenge of the Sith, you kind of have to go, well, he didn't lie.
Yeah, it did. It got better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Revenge of the Sith, I mean, that final third act especially, absolutely superb. Oh,
Yeah.
Exhausting battle, full of emotions. But that's pretty much our thoughts on the prequels, right? Because I think both of us just have a very complicated relationship with the Star Wars prequels, as I think most of you do.
Yeah.
Like, there was a point where we loved it because people of our generation, this was the entry point into Star Wars. Without the prequels, we wouldn't be Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
But then, as we grew older, we realized a lot of the flaws, a lot of the way the characters were written, the way the films were directed, the usage of CG, everything didn't work. But then now, over the years, we've come to, find love in the prequels again.
Yeah, there's a sort of corny, nostalgia spot you have for it. Like, again, if you watch it with some buddies and you just ham it, it's a lot of fun.
Yep.
It's so much fun to watch the prequels. God, I love watching it with my friends.
Yeah, I concur with him. And so that's basically our take. Now it's time for your take. Let us know what you think by hitting us up at the MovieDash on Twitter. Also, if you like our podcast, be sure to subscribe to MovieDash on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. There's also a video version on YouTube for those of you who like to check us out on YouTube. Also, if you'd like to follow both of us on social media, you can follow Sam at your Instagram.
Sam Lim Lego.
All right, and follow me at Dash Talks Movies on Twitter and Instagram. Until next time, bye-bye.